Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the Superdome, Ohio State's postseason home away from home. Another victorious trip through this building and the Sugar Bowl. The Buckeyes absolutely dominate Dabo Swinney and Clemson 49-28. Sweet revenge, redemption for what happened a year ago, silencing all the doubters who thought that they shouldn't have been here. They didn't play enough games. They didn't, play their best game this year. That's as emphatic as a message as you can possibly send to anybody. This is Rapid Reaction. It is brought to you by Byers Auto. That's Spencer Holbrook and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. The Buckeyes are going to the national championship game, and they did it in a way that they have been dreaming about for a full year.
Again, we've talked about it all week. Like, every moment of this year has been about getting to this instance, to getting back here, to getting this opportunity to fix what happened last year. And it's not because the Buckeyes hate Clemson or because Clemson blah, blah. It's like they were the better team a year ago, and they knew that, and they let it get away. And tonight you see Clemson come out, score very easy. Ohio State goes 3 and out, and you're like, oh, okay. Buckeyes defense gets a stop. 3 plays later, the Buckeyes are on the board. And all of a sudden, everyone's breath, I think, kind of caught up to them and said, okay, the Buckeyes belong here. Clemson went right back and scored, and then the Buckeyes were like, okay, that's enough. And Justin Fields, holy crap, what do you say about a guy that, he was virtually perfect in the first half, despite the fact that his body is probably, bloodied in places it shouldn't be right now.
Yeah.
What do you say? The touchdown throw that he made to Jeremy Ruckert at the end of the first half is one of the best throws I've ever seen a quarterback make. And to do that in that moment of the game, after taking the shot that he took earlier in the quarter, it speaks volumes to what Justin Fields is, especially coming off of the Northwestern game, which was the worst game of his career.
And I don't mean to interrupt because I know you wanted to say something back, but he got better after the injury. It was nearly impossible to do, but it was terrible for those first couple throws he made. You could tell he was really laboring. And then after that, I don't know what they put at him at halftime, but in the second half, he just looked incredible. But even
it was 2 plays later that he threw the touchdown pass to Chris Olave, where he rolled out, and I was sitting, in the corner of the end zone, and you could see it on his face when he was rolling out that he was in serious pain.
The ball also came out with one of the loosest spirals of his career as well. I mean, it was on the money. Chris Olave got his feet down, and Justin Fields said after the game that they had run that play like 20 times after practice this week to work on their timing. They were so excited to play together. We're going to talk about Justin Fields and his career forever. You guys know how I feel about that Heisman moment in the game last year when he comes out of the tent. He did it again in a game that was even bigger. I mean, I'm getting just goosebumps thinking about the things that he's done. It's truly remarkable. 6 touchdowns. That first half, you're talking about them responding, Berm. 5 straight touchdown drives against this Clemson, this Brent Venables defense. And they just absolutely stomped all over them. They gave up points, but when you score 49 points, that's going to happen. It was still a good defensive effort.
We asked Josh Myers after the game when they knew that they had the edge on the offensive line and they knew they could handle him. He didn't want any part of it. We asked Wyatt Davis after the game when they knew they had the edge. He said, we knew after the first drive. They knew they were going to be in control of the game after the first drive, and it was very easy to tell. They got comfortable. They realized what kind of game they were in, and then from there, Brent Venables and his defense didn't have a chance. I've never seen an offense do to his defense what Ohio State just did.
And here's somebody else who had probably the worst game of their Ohio State career 2 weeks ago. That was Ryan Day. And he pushed every button right. They were worried about the sign ceiling. They kind of danced around it. They made one subtle allusion to it last week. They said it after the game. Whatever you call those, the sugar huddles, where they had certain plays where Spencer and I were looking at, it was like they were shuttling it in from the sideline, old school football, huddling up or rushing to the line, not making the check with me. He called a fantastic game. He had a plan for what Clemson does best. And lo and behold, they did not have adjustments on defense. There seems to be a little bit of a gimmickry into what Brent Venables does from week to week, and Ohio State figured it out.
I had a chance pregame watching down in that end zone. Kevin Wilson was walking by, and he stopped to say hello. And he said, hey, how's everyone doing? And I was like, well, it seems like people are kind of on edge, Kevin. And he goes, why? And then winked and walked away. And I think that they knew what they did to Clemson a year ago. They've realized how many points they left on the board a year ago. And at that point, you think, what's to stop them from doing it again? This Clemson defense is not better than the one last year. This Clemson team, those cornerbacks could not run with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, or Jamison Williams for that matter. And I wanted to specifically mention Garrett Wilson because he also had the worst game of his career against Northwestern. And pregame, he ran, they do their jet routes down the sideline. They run that 9 route, and he dropped the ball. And for the first time that I've seen in the 9 years of covering Ohio State on the field, I saw a receiver who dropped a ball, ran back and got back in line on the last rep, and did it again and caught it. And then you see him running down the exact same sideline in the first quarter, making a diving catch. And I'm telling you, sometimes you just kind of get a feeling that these guys are doing something a little different today. And they deserve a ton of kudos for the preparation.
Last thing I'll say about the offense, we talked about.
I don't know about that. They scored 49
I have
points.
Plenty more to say about the offense, but I'm going to let you do it.
We haven't even talked about Jeremy Ruckert and Luke Farrell yet.
We talked about this offense potentially showing very little in the first 6 games of the season, and we were exactly right. Everything, once you see what Ryan Day had installed for this game, you knew and you could see just how vanilla they really were in those first 6 games. They didn't show a single thing because they knew when they got to this moment against this team, it would all be there for them.
Okay, so you can't even really leave anybody out here. Jeremy Ruckert, Luke Farrell, Jamison Williams, Trey Sermon, my goodness. The return of Olave changes everything for this team, for Justin Fields, for Ryan Day, for the play calling, everything. They had to deal with another setback. Matthew Jones goes in there, throws an incredible block to open up Trey Sermon on his early touchdown. That's when things, I think, started to settle down. They had to deal with more injuries. Paris Johnson had to come in for a couple stretches when Wyatt Davis was hurt. You can't have performances like this without every single player playing at their best level, and they got it from more than just 11 guys.
And that's the one guy I really wanted to just shout out, I guess, or give recognition to, because there's so many guys that deserve it. Greg Studrara is a kind of a whipping boy for people, but the constant shuttling and shuffling around of players. Matthew Jones, playing for Harry Miller, gets hurt. Paris Johnson comes in and has to play left guard. Wyatt Davis gets hurt later in the game, and Paris Johnson has to go play right guard because Matthew Jones is back in the game. There's just, these guys, Enoch Vamahi isn't out there. You don't know what is going on with anyone really, and it's just it's a true testament to what this team has been doing all year. And they have this like tough love thing, and it's pretty apropos because that team tonight was tough, and they tough team.
Okay.
Tough.
That's a nice segue.
Yeah.
The defensive MVP was Tuf Borland, and I think you could have rightly selected 5 or 6 other guys as well. Again, when I talk about this being a complete team effort, there's no question at all that it was. Tuf Borland, look, if you're talking about whipping boys from the last couple of years, and he will never want the spotlight on himself. I'm sure he was really uncomfortable on that stage getting that defensive MVP trophy. But again, Ohio State did not let Clemson's rushing attack beat them. That's
32 yards for
Etienne
Etienne
and Trevor Lawrence. They took away the things that where Ohio State lost the game a year ago. Justin Hilliard's story with another fumble recovery. When the game was on the line, Spencer, I'll let you go anywhere you want with it, but I thought it was really apropos for that defensive line, which was without Zach Harrison, without Tyler Friday. They asked Tyreek Smith and Jonathan Cooper to play way more snaps than they ever do, when it was like, okay, well, it's maybe not over yet. 21 points, they're late in the fourth quarter. 3 straight snaps. They're getting pressure on Trevor Lawrence. They're forcing a bad throw. They're forcing a fumble, a sack. Jonathan Cooper and Tyreek Smith, and then Baron Browning as well on one play as a blitzer. The pass rush that has also come under some criticism this year showed up in the biggest moment of this game when they had every reason to be extremely tired.
How poetic is it that whenever Ohio State needed to play in stopping the run, it was Tuf Borland. When they needed to play on the outside to get a good tackle and take a good angle, it was Justin Hilliard. And when they needed a huge sack, when they were even up 21, they needed a huge sack, it was Jonathan Cooper. And I think those 3 guys are just the perfect embodiment of what the program is. And to see Jonathan Cooper do what he did tonight, and to see Tyreek Smith kind of get the leash let off of him and just go.
Best
just
game of his
go.
career.
I mean, he can be really, really special. And to see him now moving forward into the national championship, I'm really excited because I think his confidence is going to be at an all-time high after doing what he did today.
I think the play of the game defensively was Justin Hilliard on the 3rd and 2, the little swing pass to Etienne where he just absolutely blew him up, led to the 4th and 2 at the end of the 3rd quarter, and then Clemson jumps on 4th down and has to punt when they were really going to go for it and push the envelope. And I mean, again, it sounds trite and it sounds cliche because we keep talking about these guys, but when you're talking about a kid in his 6th year in this program, and he stuck it out, and not only has Justin Hilliard been a tremendous playmaker in these last two games, but now he's proven that he belongs on the field. I mean, you're seeing a kid who was a former 5-star prospect who spent 6 years waiting for this opportunity, and now he's showing that he can play against the NFL's #1 draft pick next spring, and probably the top running back in the draft next year, and not only can play against them, but that he belongs on the field, and maybe, at least tonight, was part of the team that bested him.
Ohio State, Alabama. That's up next. That's going to be in Miami in about 10 days. Ohio State took care of business. They exorcised the demons. They got their redemption. Pick any description you want. They dominated Clemson 49-28 in the Sugar Bowl. They made some more history. Hey, the last time they did that, it worked out pretty well when they got to the next stop. That's going to be a huge, huge matchup with Alabama. Can't wait for the Lettermen Row crew to head down there to get our coverage rolling for that. Still got a lot more fallout to break down and analyze here from the win over Clemson. We will do that, as much as we possibly can. It's a late night here, but it's a fun one. Another one for the Buckeyes in New Orleans. He's Spencer Holbrook. That's Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. This has been Rapid Reaction, brought to you by Byers Auto. Stay with us for full coverage of the Buckeyes at lettermenrow.com.